floor is yours.
Thank you. I must say I also didn't have any introduction to what I'm like, what's the audience, how big is the audience, who am I talking to. So I was a little bit like, oh gee, geospatial people. So I got a phone call yesterday directly on my mobile phone from Juliana in Nairobi, where Ushahidi is working from, that she couldn't make it here, and if I would represent her on a award-winning session. I said, well, that's easy, I can do that. But that seems to be tomorrow night. So I have to improvise on a speech that I stole from Patrick Meyer, who's working for Ushahidi as well, to show at least a little bit of what I think is the crux of Ushahidi. I do not work for Ushahidi. I work for an organization called HIVOS in the Netherlands, which is a donor agency supporting these kind of projects in Africa. But we were especially triggered by the technological implementation of the software Ushahidi. It's always difficult to understand Ushahidi is an organization, but it's also the software doing. What we see here is the first actually occurrence of Ushahidi in the aftermath of election violence in Nairobi in 2008, where Ushahidi was actually born as a platform. The elections has taken place, there was a lot of violence, official media was shut down. People outside the country, people inside the country were not aware of what was happening where. So a couple of people sat together and created this platform to show, at least on a map, where violence took place, where it was not safe, and it was done by, at that time, new technology, and it was not new technology, it was existing technology, but put together in such a way that actually citizens were able to report on a category that you see on the left side, right side, by using an SMS, by using social media, by using internet, email, and all these kind of things, but especially the SMS functionality was made it especially in the context of Nairobi, of Kenya, quite accessible for a lot of people, because I mean, smartphones in Nairobi, yes, but in the countryside it's still cheap phones, text-based phones, and they could actually, through a short code that you see there, easily send a message. And the software grew into, became better, but I will show that later. But at this time, I think they did not really check anything. It was a quick, like, okay, SMS received, just put a spot on a map, and then people were aware of what's happening. And it worked at that time. I don't know how to get rid of this slide share now. It's full screen, but let's just keep it like that. These are pictures of Nairobi elections. There's no mouse here, and it has to be done somewhere. But are they listening upstairs? Well, anyway. This is the way they introduced it, and it's actually still basically functioning the same way. Send reports via mobile phones, email, and web. But it has, and that's what I'm going to show a little bit more. A lot of implementations has taken place, and I don't know them all, but when I see one that I know, I can tell a little bit of it. especially for the Indian case, but then maybe it shows up later as well, that it's used for powercuts.in, where people could actually report on power cuts where it took place. In the improvement of the system, there's also what is actually used for mostly is a kind of like event trigger. So we use it for election monitoring together with Ushahidi, but there's also the violence thing is also a short time frame. But there are also people or initiatives where you can use it for a much longer time space as well. The software in itself is open source. People can download it and install it wherever they want to install it with their own means. By the time we got in contact with Ushahidi, we had a discussion with them as well on like where do you use it for? What's the purpose of it? And there's lately also some criticism of organizations that actually say we see a lot of dead Ushahidis because it's easy to put up a reporting tool, but what do you actually do with the reporting tool? Ushahidi is always on the standpoint that WordPress can be used for progressive blogs, but also for conservative blogs, and you don't criticize WordPress for it. And that's also, Ushahidi is providing the framework, the software, and people are using it for their own conditions, on their own terms. I wanted to show the Haiti website. I hope it's getting here. Yeah. Here is a specific focus on aid in a how you call this in English, disaster recovery. By the time the earthquake happened in Haiti, there was nothing worked except internet because it was above the ground, and people were actually able to set up a mesh network and were using Ushahidi set up by American supporters who mapped the area, who got based on the Google Maps, but also at some point OpenStreetMap was used to actually get a connection between like the place where blood was available and where was a demand for blood. And at some point it was actually also used by the official UN rescue services. They used Ushahidi here as well to see whether there was a demand for support somewhere. Well, I mean, of course, Ushahidi also developed part of the mobile apps, and to make it even easier for people to host a Ushahidi instance for their own reporting tools, they created CrowdMap, which is a crowded solution for Ushahidi. So you don't have to run the software yourself, you just can create an account in 3 steps without any costs. If you want to have your own URL, then some additional services are available, but the basic CrowdMap instance is for free. This is, let me show. Now I have some examples coming along the way where it played a role in crisis management as well. This was about the Libya case where people could report on hits. Earthquakes in New Zealand, Sudan. I'm actually trying to get to the harass map. Food, Haiti again. So this is pictures of the dashboard. This is also an interesting example. Here it's actually used in a combination of different things. So with the support of my organization, people started to walk around the area of Kibera in Nairobi and map the environment. On the official maps of Nairobi, you still see forest there, but there are like 300,000 people living in that area that don't exist on the official map. So we, together with people from OpenStreetMap, we decided to map the entire area so that at least there is a presence for those people living in those areas. And that created some trigger of where people do the reporting, have information on where there is sanitation, where you can get fresh water and all these kind of things more. And it's still an active space, an active website where you actually also have the radio looks at the website and reports on the radio as well. For the most important thing, and I think that's also what I want to close with it, recently we use it in the combination of HIVOS and Ushahidi. We use it for a crowdsourced election monitoring. We work in a lot of different countries in Africa, and if you look at, I've recently been to Zimbabwe, and if you talk to the people that deal with election monitoring, they actually say, as soon as the official monitors enter the country, there's no violence anymore, so everybody will say there's a peaceful elections. The violence starts long before the elections, even before the monitors come in. So we want to have a system where you can actually do the pre-election monitoring. We used it in Tanzania for the election monitoring, crowdsourced monitoring. We used it in Kenya by the last elections as well. There the difficulty is not so much that the reports go into Ushahidi, but you want a system that it's validated. You don't want to just post a message about. So there's an emergency room where volunteers sit together who look at the back end, and they actually trace a message from a report that comes to the website. They trace that, they call a known reporter that's monitor that's actually around that area, and I call him or her and I ask for confirmation, and only when this confirmation is there it will be put on a website as a spot where something happened. We did that in Zambia. We're now setting it up for the election monitoring in Zimbabwe, and it's an additional tool, not to trust on like the whole mechanism of formal reporting. We try to give the crowd a voice in their own monitoring as well. Okay, I think that's in a